One lucky ticket can change a life forever, but for some lottery winners, sudden wealth became the first step toward a horrifying end. Betrayal, greed, and twisted fate turned fortune into tragedy, leaving behind stories that are as chilling as they are unforgettable. In this video, we'll uncover 5 of the most disturbing deaths of lottery winners, where unimaginable luck was followed by unthinkable loss. Abraham Lee Shakespeare was an ordinary man whose life took a sudden and extraordinary turn, catapulting him from modest laborer to millionaire overnight. For those who knew him, the abrupt change brought both hope and unease, as the routines of his daily life in Florida gave way to relentless attention and mounting pressures from friends, strangers, and opportunists alike. That is, until everything ended in tragedy. Born on April 24, 1966, Abraham grew up in modest circumstances and spent much of his adult life performing casual labor. Before his windfall, he picked up odd jobs around Lakeland, Florida, unloading trucks and sweeping floors at a barbershop to make ends meet. He lived with his mother in Plant City, east of Tampa, and was described by friends as barely literate, yet remarkably generous, someone who shared freely with those around him despite limited means. On November 15, 2006, Abraham's life transformed dramatically. While on a drive with his co-worker Michael Ford, he stopped at a convenience store in Frostproof, Florida, and purchased 2 lottery tickets. One of those tickets would prove to be worth $30 million, and Abraham chose a lump sum payout of $17 million after taxes. With sudden wealth, he moved into a gated community and acquired a $1 million home, a Nissan Altima, and a Rolex watch, though he avoided extravagant spending initially. Friends noted that Abraham's generosity quickly became legendary. People from all walks of life came to him seeking financial help for mortgages, medical bills, or other crises. The constant requests wore on him, and he confided to friends and family that he would have been better off broke, recognizing how the sudden attention had complicated his life. Everything changed when Abraham met Doris Donegan D.D. Moore in 2008. Moore approached him under the guise of writing a book about his rags-to-riches story, but her true interest lay in controlling his money. She convinced Abraham to start a business, Abraham Shakespeare LLC, granting her authority over the firm's funds. Soon, she withdrew $1 million from his accounts and used the money to buy luxury vehicles, including a Hummer, a Corvette, and a truck, while also funding vacations for herself. Moore maintained that the money had been a gift, though evidence showed otherwise. By April 2009, Abraham disappeared. His family and friends initially hoped he had escaped the pressures of his fortune, perhaps retreating to the Caribbean or elsewhere. However, suspicions grew as months passed, and Moore continued to hide the truth. She sent text messages from Abraham's phone and attempted to pay others to lie about his whereabouts. Authorities traced her actions and, in January 2010, discovered Abraham's remains buried beneath 9 feet of dirt and a concrete slab in the backyard of a property linked to Moore. Detectives determined he had been killed around April 6th or 7th, 2009, and evidence revealed 2 gunshot wounds to the chest. The aftermath of Abraham's death was devastating for his family. His life savings had been largely depleted, and those who had once depended on his generosity were left to confront the shocking truth. Doris Moore was arrested in February 2010, formally charged later that month, and ultimately convicted in December 2012. She received a sentence of life in prison without the possibility of parole, though she has continued to maintain her innocence and filed multiple appeals, all of which were denied. Moore's manipulations during the investigation, including attempts to create false narratives and enlist others to cover up the crime, highlighted the premeditated nature of the scheme that cost Abraham his life. Abraham Lee Shakespeare's story remains a cautionary tale of sudden wealth, vulnerability, and betrayal. From his humble beginnings as a laborer to his brief moment of fortune, and ultimately to the calculated circumstances of his death, Abraham's life shows both the potential and danger of unforeseen opportunity. In 2016, Gregory Birch Jr. was a young man on the cusp of new possibilities, suddenly thrust into the spotlight of fortune while still trying to navigate the responsibilities of early adulthood. For those who knew him, the change brought admiration, curiosity, and ultimately tragedy. Born and raised in Fitzgerald, Georgia, Gregory was a 20-year-old forklift driver supporting his family and raising 3 children. Friends and family described him as generous and humble, someone who had struggled to make ends meet yet remained grounded despite the pressures of daily life. Prior to his windfall, he had shared the challenges of his work and personal life openly with friends, maintaining a steady commitment to his family and community. Gregory's character reflected a mix of practical responsibility and genuine care for others, qualities that would shape both his short-lived fortune and the impact of his untimely death. On November 29, 2015, Gregory's life changed dramatically when he won $434,272 in the Georgia Fantasy 5 lottery, purchasing his winning Quick Pick ticket at H&R Food Mart in Warner Robins. Following the win, he used part of his winnings to buy Christmas presents for families in need, actions that earned him respect and admiration in Fitzgerald. Despite his newfound wealth, Gregory reportedly told friends that he would not let success corrupt him, remaining humble and cautious even as he navigated the sudden attention that accompanied his prize. The promise of a brighter future ended abruptly on the night of January 20, 2016. Gregory was at his home on Stubbs Avenue with his girlfriend and children when 3 masked intruders armed with a shotgun forced their way inside. According to reports, Gregory pleaded for his life, offering his wallet and bank card, and even threw his pants at the intruders in an attempt to satisfy their demands. Despite his efforts, the attackers shot him multiple times after failing to locate his wallet and fled the scene. His girlfriend managed to escape and seek help, but authorities arrived too late to save him. Investigators confirmed the act was a targeted attack with motives linked to his recent lottery winnings. In the aftermath, Gregory's tragic death reverberated throughout his family and the Fitzgerald community. His mother, Leslie Collins, expressed profound grief, highlighting the personal loss and injustice of her son's death. Friends described the killing as heartbreaking, citing envy, greed, and malice as driving forces behind the violence. Authorities charged 7 individuals in connection with the case: Nathaniel Baker, Keona Dius, Ernest Holcomb, Angeville Johnson, Wyan Jordan, DeBrentis Overstreet, and Rosalind Swain, with malice murder, armed robbery, aggravated assault, and possession of a firearm during the commission of a crime. Investigators indicated the case remained ongoing, with more arrests expected as the inquiry continued. Gregory's story remains a tragic reminder of the vulnerability that can accompany sudden wealth. His brief moment of fortune, marked by generosity and humility, ended in a violent act that devastated his loved ones and left a community mourning the loss of a young father whose potential was cut short. The incident underscored the dangers faced by lottery winners and the consequences of envy and criminal intent, turning what should have been the beginning of a brighter future into an enduring tragedy. Uruj Khan's life had reached a remarkable high point when fortune struck in a way few could anticipate. The 46-year-old Chicago businessman had worked steadily to establish himself in a foreign country, building a business and providing for his family. Yet within hours of achieving an unexpected milestone, his world ended in tragedy. What began as a celebration of success turned into a chilling mystery, leaving his loved ones grappling with grief, suspicion, and unanswered questions about the final moments of his life. Originally from Hyderabad, India, Uruj moved to the United States in 1989, settling in Chicago. He eventually opened Style Dry Cleaners on Devon Avenue in 2004, later expanding with additional locations on Western Avenue and in Edgewater, as well as acquiring properties for rental income. By 2012, he lived with his second wife, Shabana Ansari, her father, Faridun Ansari, and his 17-year-old daughter from a previous marriage, Jasmine, in West Rogers Park on Chicago's North Side. A devout Muslim, Uruj had sworn off gambling after performing the Hajj pilgrimage to Mecca in 2010, yet in June 2012, he bought 2 scratch-off lottery tickets on a whim from a local 7-Eleven. One ticket revealed a $1 million jackpot, which he later accepted as a lump sum payment of $424,449 after taxes. The winnings were intended to pay off mortgages, expand his business, and make charitable contributions, including to St. Jude Children's Research Hospital. Uruj's excitement was evident to friends and family, who recalled him as generous, hardworking, and deeply devoted to his family. On July 19, 2012, Uruj attended a news conference to collect the ceremonial check, flanked by Shabana, Jasmine, and Faridun. That evening, the family shared a traditional Indian kofta curry prepared by Shabana. Hours later, Uruj became severely ill, collapsing in his bedroom in agony. He was rushed to St. Francis Hospital in Evanston, but died the following day. Initially, the Cook County medical examiner attributed his death to arteriosclerotic cardiovascular disease, noting one artery was 75% blocked and ruled it natural. No autopsy was performed because his death appeared non-suspicious, and no signs of trauma were found. Standard blood tests had been taken, revealing no alcohol, opiates, or carbon monoxide. Suspicion emerged when Uruj's brother, Imtiaz, pressed the medical examiner for further investigation, insisting that his brother had not died naturally. Blood samples previously collected were retested, revealing lethal levels of cyanide. Medical examiner Dr. Stephen Sina subsequently reclassified the death as homicide. Investigators focused on Uruj's final meal, though both Shabana and her father denied involvement, and claimed they had eaten the same food without ill effects. In January 2013, Uruj's body was exhumed for a comprehensive autopsy, but cyanide was no longer detectable in the tissues due to decomposition, leaving the method of administration unresolved. Despite repeated inquiries and toxicology tests, no suspects have been charged, and the case remains unsolved. Uruj's death was further complicated by family disputes and legal challenges. He left no will, prompting a bitter probate battle. Daughter Jasmine received 5 condominiums valued at $250,000 and 1/3 of the lottery winnings, while Shabana retained the dry cleaning business and 2/3 of the lottery prize, valued at approximately $1 million. Custody of Jasmine was awarded to Uruj's sister, Miraj Khan, who expressed ongoing grief and a sense of unfinished responsibility toward her brother. At the time of Uruj's death, his father-in-law, Faridan, owed $124,000 in back taxes and has since passed away, buried near Uruj. The unresolved nature of Uruj's tragic death, combined with the complex family dynamics and disputes over his estate, has left a lasting void, with investigators still seeking answers and loved ones struggling to reconcile the sudden loss of a man who had seemingly achieved a long-awaited fortune. Jeffrey Dampier's story began as the stuff of dreams. An ordinary man suddenly catapulted into extraordinary wealth. Yet what should have been a life of comfort and security became tangled with deceit, manipulation, and ultimately, fatal betrayal. Born and raised on Chicago's West Side, Jeffrey's life changed forever with his $20 million Illinois lottery win in 1996, a fortune that would eventually lead to his death. Before his rise and fall, Jeffrey worked as a security guard and lived a modest, steady life. His astonishing lottery win provided financial freedom, but also brought unexpected challenges. Soon after claiming the prize, he and his wife divorced, splitting the winnings evenly. In the years that followed, Jeffrey relocated to Florida, remarried, and sought a fresh start with his new wife, Crystal Jackson. Together, they opened Cassie's Gourmet Popcorn in Tampa Bay, hoping to build a lasting business and shape a new chapter from the fortune. Jeffrey was widely recognized for his generosity. He provided financial and emotional support to Crystal's family, helping her sisters, Victoria and Terry Jackson, relocate to Florida. He assisted them with bills, offered gifts, and helped them regain stability. Beneath this generosity, however, a hidden danger was taking shape. Jeffrey was having an affair with his sister-in-law, Victoria Jackson. By 2005, Victoria had also become involved with a man named Nathaniel Jackson. Nathaniel, aware of both Jeffrey's wealth and the affair, allegedly began to plan a scheme to extract money from him, using intimidation if necessary. On July 26, 2005, Victoria called Jeffrey, claiming her car had broken down and asking him to come to Nathaniel's apartment. When he arrived, he was ambushed. Nathaniel held him at gunpoint and forced him into a van. Jeffrey's hands were bound with shoelaces and he was struck with the butt of a shotgun. The demand was simple: hand over the money or else. As the situation escalated, Jeffrey refused to comply. Reports indicate that Nathaniel and Victoria switched places in the van so Victoria could attempt to persuade him herself. At some point, Nathaniel handed her the shotgun, allegedly instructing her to carry out the act or face consequences. With the gun in her hands, Victoria had to make a choice between Jeffrey and her own safety. She fired a single round into the back of Jeffrey's head, killing him instantly. The two then left Jeffrey's body in the van along a quiet road. Authorities discovered the scene shortly afterward. Investigators traced the events to Victoria and Nathaniel, who were arrested within days. Both faced charges and convictions. In 2006, Victoria was found guilty of killing Jeffrey, armed kidnapping, and armed carjacking, receiving 3 consecutive life sentences. Nathaniel faced the same charges and received identical sentences. During the trial, Victoria's defense argued she was a victim of coercion, suggesting that Nathaniel had forced her into the act and that the relationship with Jeffrey had begun when she was still a teenager. Despite these claims, the court held her fully responsible, citing her role in luring Jeffrey to the ambush. In the aftermath, Jeffrey's family struggled to reconcile his violent death with the generous man they had known. His father expressed that justice had been served, while Crystal reflected somberly on the influence of wealth in her husband's demise, calling it a curse. For Jeffrey Dampier, a man who sought to use his fortune to help those around him, generosity became entangled with betrayal. What began as the realization of a dream ended as a nightmare of manipulation, violence, and irrevocable loss. In June 1997, the life of Billy Bob Harold Jr. changed in a way that seemed almost unimaginable. A man who had struggled to provide for his family, moving between low-paying jobs and at one point working at Home Depot in Harris County, Texas, suddenly became the sole winner of a $31 million Lotto Texas jackpot. For Billy, a husband and father of 3, the win appeared to be the answer to years of hardship and financial strain. The promise of stability and abundance, however, would prove to be far more complex than he could have foreseen. What began as a moment of joy and renewal would unravel into a series of pressures and losses that ultimately ended in tragedy. Billy's circumstances before the lottery highlight why the win initially felt so transformative. Having been laid off from multiple jobs, he had faced the ongoing difficulty of supporting his wife, Barbara Jean, and their children. When the winning quick pick ticket matched the numbers, the discovery was almost too shocking to believe. His son, Billy III, remembered the moment vividly. His father had called him over to check, and together they realized that the numbers aligned perfectly. At the official ceremony in Austin, when Billy collected the first of 25 annual checks worth $1.24 million each, he reflected on the challenges he had endured and the relief that seemed to be ahead. After winning, he acknowledged that people had always told him things would get better, but he never would have dreamed just how much his life would change. With those words, Billy looked toward the future with optimism, convinced that the struggles of the past had finally been replaced by hope. In the months following his win, Billy began to transform his and his family's lives. He purchased a ranch and provided new homes for family members. He bought cars, contributed generously to his church, and even donated hundreds of turkeys to the poor. He took his family on a trip to Hawaii, bought a new home, and allowed himself and his loved ones to experience comforts that had long been out of reach. Yet with every gesture of generosity, new pressures began to mount. Word of his winnings spread quickly, and soon Billy was inundated with requests for money. Friends, relatives, fellow church members, and even complete strangers sought his financial help. His oldest son, Ben, later remarked that people came to expect Billy's giving and that his father enjoyed the attention that accompanied it. The recognition and admiration from others seemed to matter more to him than spending money on himself. But this generosity came at a cost. Billy's spending spiraled out of control, and his inability to say no left him vulnerable to both financial and emotional strain. He made poor financial decisions, including a deal with a company that offered lump sum payments in exchange for his annual checks, which left him with far less than his original winnings. As financial stress mounted, the tension began to spill into his marriage. The constant strain over money and the demands placed upon him created deep cracks in his relationship with Barbara Jean. The couple eventually separated, and the distance from his wife and family only deepened Billy's sense of isolation. Once a man who had worked tirelessly to provide, he now found himself surrounded by wealth, but stripped of the stability and closeness that mattered most to him. By 1999, less than 2 years after his life-changing win, Billy's situation had deteriorated beyond repair. Despite the fortune that had once promised salvation, he confided to his financial advisor that winning the lottery had been the worst thing that ever happened to him. The joy of wealth had given way to a crushing burden of expectation, financial instability, and personal loss. On May 22, 1999, Billy took his own life inside his home. 3 notes were found in the bedroom where he died. One was addressed to his ex-wife, Barbara Jean, with the devastating words, "I didn't want this. I just wanted you." The statement encapsulated the profound despair he felt, that the wealth which had promised happiness had instead cost him his marriage, his peace of mind, and ultimately his will to go on. Billy's tragic end revealed the darker reality behind what so many consider a dream come true. It shows that sudden wealth without boundaries, planning, or emotional support can destroy rather than heal. For Billy Bob Harrell Jr., the lottery did not bring freedom. Instead, it magnified the struggles he had hoped to escape, leading him down a path from hope to heartbreak.